actually this is actually the first, I got a sidetrack then, the first seminar of our autumn series, and it's also the first one in Nigel's second series for us. I mean, before we broke for the summer, we had a really lovely first series, and he's done that over the past year, and it's been very successful. And we've been looking at the essential skills for professional services marketing and BD colleagues. So now Nigel is back. It's a bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he's back with the second half of his more essential series. And in this series, we're going to explain the key tools and techniques needed by us as MBD professionals. And we're going to draw on the core content of the Professional Services Marketing Apprenticeship Programme that PSMG and Cambridge Marketing College have formed together. And in this series, we're also going to challenge the MBD, all of you in MBD, to become client champions within your firm. Now, don't let Nigel hear, but he is absolutely excellent at all these programs that we're running with Cambridge Marketing College, because he is the senior tutor there, and we're very lucky to have him working with us. So we're going to be doing 3 lots of webinars in this more essential series. The first one today is going to be looking at marketing and BD strategy. The next one on the 21st of October is going to be marketing and BD services innovation. And the last one on the 25th of November is going to be around brand management. So I'm not going to say anything more about that because Nigel is the expert, as I've said. So please let me hand over to him. I will just please say one more thing. Do ask questions. I know we've got a bit of a problem at the moment with you asking it, you know, with your voice, but please type in questions, because amongst us this morning, we do have some lovely graduate trainees with us from certain firms. And so please do ask the questions. Nothing is silly, because let's make them welcome. Let's make them see what a lovely bunch of people we are within the sector. And that together we can help them learn, and let's bring on this professionals of the future. So there we are. I'll hand over to you, Nigel, if I may.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you very much for that introduction, and welcome everybody to this session. Great to have so many of you on. And yes, I'll reinforce that message that Gail said about asking questions. Please do drop them into the chat if microphones and voices aren't working. And also I will stick around at the end of the session. So if you kind of want some more stuff, and you'll see my contact details as we go through. So if you want to get in touch and ask questions outside of the session, then please do so. So let's get going. And I always find when I'm on Zoom that I click on my slides and it takes a moment for them to come through. So just bear with me a moment. Right, okay. So as Gail said, this is the sort of second half of what we've been working on in terms of our More Essentials series. So this is a 6-part series overall. This is the second half of that, so number 4 of the 6. And what we're really here to do is to explore the tools, tips and techniques needed by professional services, MBD professionals, to sort of, really progress. So it's really here to design to help you in your career and build from a solid foundation of knowledge and skills. So we'll cover more essentials from, as Gail said, we've got a suite of apprenticeships and qualifications. We've got a program that we've been working on with between Cambridge and Marketing College and PSMG over the past few years. So we're going to be drawing on the content and material from those courses. So a little bit of background there. As I said, Cambridge Marketing College and PSMG have been working on this program for a number of years. Cambridge Marketing College is one of the most trusted providers of marketing training in the country, in fact, internationally. And of course, PSMG is the leading body for professional services and MBD professionals in our sector. And one of the tools that we use through our training is a book that I helped work on with people across the sector from a few years ago, called the Professional Services Marketing Handbook. And our flagship program is our apprenticeship program. We've developed that over the last couple of years. A lot of the material that we'll draw on today, we cover in the apprenticeship program. We have apprenticeship programs at different levels. So we have them at assistant, executive, and manager level. In this series, we're going to be drawing on mainly on the material that we cover in our manager apprenticeship program. But I'll bring to this my perspective on these topics from across our programs. And you can see my contact details there. If you want to talk more about the apprenticeship program, you'll also see the contact details of our apprenticeship manager, Charlotte, at the college. So why are we doing this? Why is that partnership there between Cambridge Marketing College and PSMG? Well, a number of you, if you've been to these sessions before, will have seen this slide, but I think I talk about professional services, marketing, business development, and people ask me, what's the difference between what we do in professional services and what we do elsewhere in terms of consumer goods marketing or more standard B2B marketing? And I come up with this frame about same difference. So in terms of what's the same in terms of marketing theory and practice, well, it's all about the customer or the client, as we call them. And if you know more about your customer, more about your market, then in any business, you as an MBD professional will have a lot of influence and a lot of power. And that's the point that Gail there mentioned about being client champion. I'm a real advocate in any business for the MBD professional to be a client champion. People are people. Well, that's a bit of an obvious statement. What do I mean by that? Well, we talk about B2C marketing, B2B marketing. At the end of the day, marketing is all about the relationship between people. And I'm not sure that people behave particularly differently, whether they're a consumer or a client or a customer. I think people behave in the same sort of way. And wherever you are, whatever sector that you work in, whatever business you're involved with, I see MBD as a process. And so good practice, skills, attention to metrics, understanding return on investment, all of that counts. Doesn't matter what market you're in, that is all important. So a good solid base of understanding of marketing skills and practice is really important. But professional services marketing has its differences. One is I see it as what I call messy, and that brand is complex because brand is in the eyes of your client, brand is in the eyes of your customer. It's what they think of you, not what you say, that's important. And so what they think of you is influenced by a number of different things in professional services. Their view of the brand might be the firm, it might be the team, it might be an individual partner or consultant or lawyer that they work with. So brand can be messy and it can get complex. I think, in any business, MBD is a team sport. It's not something that you just do on your own, but it's particularly a team sport in professional services where you're always part of a bigger team. You're always part of that operational MBD combination that needs to come into play. And therefore, because it's a team sport, relationships and trust are paramount. You might have the most fantastic technical marketing skills, but if you don't have the relationships, if you don't have the trust with your colleagues, then you're not going to truly succeed. So there are some differences there, but there are also some things that are the same. So that's always my pitch as to why understanding core marketing skills and techniques is really important, but layering that with an understanding and perspective on the professional services marketplace. So what we're going to do in this series, as Gail said, we're going to try and run a series of masterclasses looking at key tools, tips, and techniques, and we're going to be drawing on that marketing manager syllabus of marketing, digital strategy, innovation, managing brands, and digital customer experience. And today we'll be going to focus on that first module about marketing and digital strategy and understanding the key elements of MBD strategy and plans. So what we're going to be looking at is how you analyze your internal and external environments and bring that knowledge into your strategy. We're going to think about how you really identify, with all that information, all that research, all that stuff that you might be able to pull from your internal and external environment, how do you really identify insights to inform strategic decisions? How do you identify the what I call the sort of distinct, the sort of so what from the quite interesting points? So how do you consolidate that? How do you filter that into a strategic marketing and BD plan, and make sure that that plan is not just sort of some airy-fairy statements, but you've got the right resources, you've got the right checks and balances in place so that you can deliver, and you have the flexibility to change and adapt that plan as you put it into action. So that's what we're going to try and cover in the next 20-25 minutes. We're going to do that through a number of areas. I said we're going to touch on tools and techniques as the fundamentals. So these are the areas we're going to look at. I won't run through them all there now because we're going to touch upon them, but I very much believe that there are some great tools and techniques out there in the marketing world that you can build from. You don't need to understand them in infinite level of detail, but if you're aware of them, if you know that they're in your toolbox and that you can draw on them, then they can really help you improve your marketing and BD strategy. So we're going to start at the top there with, I suppose I could just have called it jargon, but I'm going to start with mission, objective, strategy, and plans. This is a small point about terminology, but it's a bigger point about alignment. So you'll see lots of words thrown around about mission, purpose, objective, strategy, plans, and you might sometimes wonder what's the distinction between one or the other. Well, there is a distinction. It's not particularly important in terms of the language. It's more important that you know what a plan or a document or an idea is trying to do than really what it's called. But there are different levels, and I've separated them out here into corporate mission and purpose, corporate objectives and strategy, marketing and BD strategy, and your marketing and BD action plan. Now, different firms will have different documents or different categorizations, but these are really a split between the kind of the why, the what, the how, and the kind of who and when. So hopefully you've got a sense of the why of your business. So that's the kind of mission purpose level. Why do you even exist? You know, what are you trying to set out to achieve? That's the why. You should have something at a corporate level. It might be corporate objectives, it might be a strategy, but that's the kind of what piece. You know, what are you trying to achieve? It's probably more time bound than a mission or a purpose statement. It might be set out as a 5-year strategy or what you're trying to do in terms of particular goals within a particular time frame. But that's the kind of what are you trying to achieve. I see the marketing BD strategy more at the level of certainly a sort of, when we talk about strategy, that's more of the how piece. So how are you actually going to achieve those objectives? You know, practically what's your path, what's your route that you're going to take to achieve your goal. And then within that strategy, there should be an action plan. And that's really the details of who's going to do what and when, and the real nitty-gritty stuff. And your organization, your firm might do this in a different way. They might carve it up in a different way. The most important point here is about alignment. So you really should be able to see where the connection is. You should be able to look at your MBD action plan or your marketing BD strategy and say, yeah, I can see that this helps deliver on these corporate objectives, or this is helping us achieve the mission and purpose of the organization. So always look for that alignment, and I'll talk about something later on that you could do around this. I'm just going to just check in on Q&A as we go along, and I'll come back to some of those questions in a minute. Let's keep moving. Sorry, my slides are proving a little bit slow in progressing. Apologies for this. I'm not moving on in terms of my slides. I might need to. Right. Yeah, here we go. Sorry about that. My keyboard is proving a bit sticky. So, external environment. We're now going to move on from that framework in terms of thinking about how we distill down all of that information that is out there. So one of the good models to bear in mind, and we're here talking about your external environment, is PESTA or PESTLE. Different people call it different things because whether they use the L for legal or the R for regulatory, it doesn't really matter. But it's a good model for bringing in, helping you think through all the different things that might be affecting your business. It's very easy in a strategy to sort of take an internal view of where you are at the moment, and not challenge yourself to think about what's going on in the outside world. PESTLE or PESTA is a really good way of kind of going, okay, what is going on out in my marketplace? What are the big picture changes that can potentially impact my business or my organization in the future? So it's a real kind of future scanning, future gazing model to use. And market research, whether you outsource that to an agency or you do it yourself, is it's really good to do some proper market research, whether that's qualitative or quantitative, whether it's primary research or secondary market research, whether it's big picture macro or small picture micro. These are all things that I would encourage you to look at and bring that into the consideration that you have around your strategy. Another really good model to think about in terms of considering your external environment is what's known as Porter's 5 forces. A number of you might be familiar with this model. It really helps you think about your position relative to different market players over time. So it forces you to think about what's not just what's the rivalry within your industry or within your sector. What impact does your clients, the buyer power, have? What impact does your suppliers have? Is there a chance that your market is going to be threatened by substitution? Is it going to be threatened by new entrants? We know the number of new players that are coming into the professional services market that are really were not around 10 or 15 years ago. It's always very easy when you're thinking about your competitive position to just look at the players, the competitors that you're used to seeing. It's really, this is a great model to sort of think, okay, what's fundamental? Are there any fundamental changes in my market that are coming from external positions? So I'd really recommend throwing this into the mix in terms of your external market research. And then there's a model that McKinsey, the famous market consultants, put together a number of years ago. They call the 7S model, which is a good way of thinking about your internal environment. So within your organization, you can see the points there around structure, system, style, staff, skills, strategy, and shared values. But the real value I find in this model is it asks you to challenge and think about the interplay of the different aspects of your firm. So how do these not only where are you or how strong or how good are you in the different aspect, the different S's, but what's the interplay there, and does that throw up opportunities or challenges for you in your business in terms of informing your strategy? So ultimately, there's a lot of information that you probably can draw upon there in terms of filtering down all of the information that you want to build into your strategy from rather the external environment or the internal environment. But ultimately, you've got to kind of, you've got to start to distill that down into, as I sort of say, try and distinguish between the so what from the kind of quite interesting stuff. And what I mean by that is you're really looking for the nuggets of information that make a difference, that you really should be having, fundamentally at the center of your strategy, or that your strategy is responding to. So it's the real kind of, these points really matter, these points really make a difference, and filtering out well, that's kind of quite interesting. I come across a lot of things where people, will sort of bring something forward, and they'll sort of say, this is really important. And when you challenge them and sort of say, okay, so what? What does that really mean? You realize it's not that significant, and it really, it falls down into the category of kind of quite interesting rather than really impactful. Most of you, I'm sure, will be familiar with the model of a SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. It's a great model for sort of thinking through what are really those nuggets. Strengths and weaknesses kind of speak to the internal side of your environment. Opportunities, threats speak to the external market. But what I always say, and what is really important here, is this is a model relative to your position in the market. So a strength is only a strength if you're genuinely strong in that area relative to the market, relative to your competitors. I see loads of SWOTs where people sort of say, we've got great people. You might have great people, but if your competitors have great people as well, it's not a strength. And you need to be really, really tough on yourself on that. And if you are tough, if you take that information from your external, internal environment, distill it down, think about the so what question, think about is it just quite interesting? Think about the relative position in terms of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Then you can get down to the nuggets that really should be informing your strategy and really being the building blocks. So another way of looking at the same thing is this concept of either core competence or differentiators. So what you're looking for to inform your strategy is something or a combination of things that truly set you apart. It's usually a mixture of what and who in a professional services firm, and you're really looking for something that is lasting, hard to copy. It's what we call sustainable competitive advantage. You'll find lots of literature about that topic, but that's really what you're trying to get to in terms of what your strategy is pointing towards. It's not something that you, as I said with the SWOT, it's not something that you're really good at, but others are too. It shouldn't be something that others can easily copy. And it shouldn't be something that the market or your clients don't value. So this is kind of quite difficult, particularly in professional services, where it's hard to differentiate, it's hard to identify those core competencies. But that's really what you should be driving at. That's really where you should be going in terms of what underpins your strategy. Because if you understand your market, you understand your organization, and you understand your differentiators, then you've got the real foundations for some strategic objectives that you stand a chance of succeeding with, rather than something that is either identical to everybody else or is threatened by changes in the market and really won't happen in terms of you trying to implement them. So one of the ways of thinking about this, and you'll see people writing about this in terms of thinking about an MBD intelligence system. So this is kind of how you distill your internal, your external environment, capture it in a SWOT or in core competencies of differentiators, and then trying to think about, okay, if that's what we're trying to achieve, how would we distill that down into a dashboard or a KPI dashboard of where you're trying to go, and that then can then filter down in terms of how that comes together in terms of your plans. And all the way through this, as you're thinking about your planning, pulling your plans together, shaping, moving from strategies into high-level strategies into plans, I always encourage people, marketers, MBD professionals, to come back to the three pillars of really great marketing, three great pillars of marketing and business development in professional services firms, which is segmentation, targeting, positioning. Segmentation, targeting, position. What are the segments you're focusing on? Where are the segments in the market where your differentiators, your core competence, your strengths are really going to make a difference? You're really going to win in that area. How do you then target that market? Who are the particular clients or subsectors that you're going after? And then how do you start to position yourself in that space? And you should come back to this each time. I've drawn it here as a kind of linear piece. It's not really linear. It's circular. It's, what's the segment? What's the target? Who are the targets? How are we going to position? That's really what you're working on the whole time. And if your strategy and plans speak to that, really that shines through, you understand the so what, not the quite interesting in terms of those segments, then you're really on the path to success. When you're thinking about translating strategies into plans, when you're thinking about resourcing, when you're thinking about the who and the what and the when and things, the good old 7 Ps marketing mix is a great model to come back to, because it really helps you sort of think, okay, if you've got your segments and you're starting with your targeting and your positioning, what you really need to do in terms of action planning, the 7 Ps really can help you, because there's always a tendency within marketing and business development to sort of leap towards promotion. So promotion in terms of the classic kind of Marcom stuff around, oh, we've got to get our name out, we've got to get better known, we've got to create some noise, we've got to build profile. But there are so many other things in the marketing mix that you need to think about. There's that big P of price, which MBD professionals certainly tend to sort of shy away from, because we think that's the realm of finance, or that's what the partners look after. But it's a big part of the equation. And even if we don't have control over price, we should have influence over price. Price should feature in our plans and strategies. It should be part of the conversation. It shouldn't be something that is ignored. Likewise, place, I mean, who knows what place means anymore in the virtual world, but it's something that we should be considering. The product, how product or the service, how is that designed? How does that speak to our clients? There might be work that needs to be done there. It might not just be something that we inherit. So working through the 7 Ps will really help you round out your plan and think about resources and aspects that you need to address. Couple of things around models, planning models. Again, if you've been on my previous sessions, you will have heard me speak about SOSTAC. SOSTAC is a mnemonic for a planning model of situational analysis, objectives, strategies, tactics, action, control. So we've talked a little bit around that already. The situational analysis is your external and internal environment, distilling that into objectives, making sure those objectives really match up to your competencies and your differentiators, how you move from an objectives level to strategy and tactics and actions as you get more detailed and more specific. And then the control piece, which is really important. Control is, measuring your performance, making sure that you are on a circular model here where you are able to course correct and adjust if that control is not showing you that you're going the way that you want to do. So it isn't an iterative process. And I think SOSTAC is a framework for any strategic plan. So I'm going to come to an end soon, but I did want to say something about action planning. There's 2 quotes there, both of which I'm particularly keen on, because I think they're both very, very relevant to the strategic planning arena. The first one you might be familiar with because it gets accredited to a whole range of people, mainly military generals through the years, but I think it's relevant in the business environment as well, which is no plan survives contact with the enemy. I would, in my experience, I'd amend it slightly, which is that no plan survives intact when you come in contact with the enemy. You can decide who the enemy is, whether the enemy is your competitors, the marketplace, in some cases it might even be your clients. But I think what that quote speaks to is that you should not expect any plan to remain unchanged as soon as you start to implement it. So once you start to implement a plan, there's bound to be something that doesn't quite go as you expect it to, and you need to be flexible and nimble and have the ability to adapt your plan as you come into contact with the enemy. The second quote was something that I heard in a speech from a strategy guru many years ago, which is a grade B strategy with grade A implementation will be a grade A strategy with grade B implementation. So that's not saying a bad plan well implemented will be a good plan badly implemented. What it's really saying is that you should strive for A grade in both your strategy and your implementation. But if you don't quite get there on either, if you're not going to get there on both accounts, then really make sure you implement well, because if you've got a pretty decent plan and you implement it really well, it's probably going to do better than an amazing plan that is not implemented well. So a few pointers there in terms of what good action planning, what good implementation of strategy looks like. So first of all, the first 2 I would put together is is that control piece. So have milestones, progress checks in place. Understand what your critical path is. So your critical path is, and you can find more about this if you're not familiar with the ideas around critical paths. But critical paths is where if you do something, if you have a Gantt chart of everything that you need to do in your plan, you'll notice there'll be some things which you really can't move on to point C until you've done point B. And so you'll have a critical path through your plan, and you should really know what are the things that have to happen before something else can happen. So know your critical path. And I put on there key risks equal probability times impact. You should understand what are the big risks in your strategy or in your plan. So those are either things that are likely to happen or things that will have a big impact if they happen or don't happen. So you think about the likelihood of something not going to plan. Think about what the impact is if that thing happens and doesn't go to plan. So if you think about risks being probability times impact, you're looking for those key risks. I would encourage you to put, whether it's budget reviews, whether it's reporting on your KPI dashboard, but have things in place, have checks and balances in place where you're bringing other parties into the progress on your strategy and plans, so that there's a review process in there. So you're checking as you go. And from a positive point of view, everybody likes to see a strategy go well. Everybody likes to see plans succeed. So think about some, you might call it low-hanging fruit, you might call it quick wins, but some things that will make you and the team feel better, or make you and the business feel better if stuff gets done. And build into your plan some contingency planning, some stress tests, thinking back to those key risks points. So if something does go awry, you know how to be flexible, you know you can be nimble. And finally, because I'm a marketer, comms. Communicate what your strategy is. Make sure people understand it. Make sure people understand your plans. You'll be surprised how many strategies are out there. Enormous amounts of effort are put into them, and then nobody really shares them. Nobody really communicates them. And they're really dead in the water from day one because nobody knows what you're trying to do. So I've left there some final thoughts in terms of some of the real essentials out of what we've talked about today. External internal environment, thinking about differentiators, insights, that so what, not quite interesting piece. My sort of thing that I bang about more than anything else, segmentation, targeting, positioning, and then the use of SOSTAC action planning in terms of models. And on the right-hand side, there are some things that you could take away from this session and think about or do with your teams in the coming days and weeks that will help you become better professionals around marketing and BD strategy and plans. So test that alignment between the different levels of mission, objective, strategies. Look at the different information sources you used in terms of your market research, by the external, internal. Really bang on about segment, target, position. How is that in your firm? How good are you at that? And if you've got a plan in place or a strategy in place, then really, work out a stress test of it. Where are your risks? Where's your critical path? What is likely to go right or wrong, and how would you flex if that wasn't there? So I will leave you with this slide, just to remind you that the next session we're going to be doing is on innovation in marketing, and I will just look at the Q&A and see what I can pick up there. Have I got any examples of KPI dashboards? The answer to that is yes, I have. If the person that has asked me that question wants to get in touch and I'm happy to sort of share. But the balance, if people are familiar with the balanced scorecard model, just Google balanced scorecard and you'll find it in terms of clients, people, the different aspects of a balanced scorecard. I think that's always a good starting point, because a balanced scorecard gives you a broad sense of the different aspects that you go. So next question, this may be totally counterintuitive and met with derision, but in the current environment, many marketing plans have gone out the window. Our marketing plan is very fluid, very dynamic, and hardly a plan at all. I can almost say we're making it up as we go along, and it works. We've come through the pandemic in a very strong position, largely due to previous investment in profile brand. How does that fit with conventional thinking? Well, so I would say there is a misconception that a plan is something that is written down on a piece of paper. It's often written down on a piece of paper because that's an easy way to communicate, but a plan can be in people's heads. And if you've got shared views, if your team is very clear, or your business team is very clear about what your objectives are, about what your markets you're focused on what clients you're trying to retain or attract, I would say you have a plan there. It may not be written on a piece of paper, it may not be on a Gantt chart, but you've probably got the more important piece in place, which is somebody is sharing that, somebody is aware of that, and it's working. So sometimes, you know, these things can be a little bit too fluid, and sometimes we can take a changing market as well. We don't really need to do anything, do we? But we don't have to write something down. But I would say if you've got a shared perspective of direction, then you've actually got the more important part of a plan in place. Should the tools that you stated be used at a high level overall strategy, not at marketing and BD suites? So I wouldn't differentiate between levels. I would just say there's stuff that you should be doing at a corporate level for the organization as a whole, which is not just about the market and customers and your BD approach, but the tools are as useful anywhere you go. So yes, you know, corporate strategies should be considering your external environment. Corporate strategies should have control in place. These things are all, the models and theories are all consistent. I'm quite aware that there was a couple of questions asked earlier that I clicked on and didn't answer.
I've got one, sorry, Nigel, to interrupt. It might be because I've been answering some.
Oh, right, okay.
But one question that came through is, do you have any advice when your firm is trying to get you to provide an action plan without having the other three higher parts for which it to flow into?
Yes, so I mean, that is a good question and not an unusual situation to be in. I think the way I would answer it is consistent with that point around, actually we don't have a marketing plan that's written down. If there isn't a hardwired strategy in place, if there isn't a document that you can refer to, then I would think the most useful thing that you can be doing is having a conversation with your executive management team, your managing partner, your senior partner, the leadership of the business, and having a conversation with them, and not sort of say, where's the mission, where's the strategy, can we see it, but have a really open and hopefully quite challenging conversation about what are we trying to achieve, where are our priorities, because some of these things are in people's heads and can be articulated remarkably well by leaders in businesses. They're just not very good at writing them down. So don't be hung up on having nice, shiny documents, things that are written down, things that are PDF'd, things that are designed. If it needs to be a conversation, then have a conversation. But I think sometimes you find that people have great ideas, they just haven't translated them into a plan. You might be able to step up. You might, as the marketing BD professionals, actually might be able to use some of their really good marketing communication skills to help your leaders in the business translate what is in their heads into something that can be shared more widely with the business. It doesn't have to be a 70-page document. In fact, sometimes, or usually 70-page documents are the ones that are most likely to gather dust in the corner. You'd like to think there's some rigor. You'd like to think that there's some challenge. There's not just a whole bunch of platitudes in there. But if you are, if you're able to have that conversation with your leadership teams, then not only might they distill information to you that can translate well into an MBD strategy or plan, but also you might be able to help them crystallize that into a tool or a document or something that is more shareable within your business and more likely to bring their ideas to life. Let me see, what do we have still open? We have a number of different teams and experts. To what extent should these colleagues and tools be lent on to prepare the plan? I work in finance and regulation. It's impossible to keep up all the changes alone, especially when running a number of campaigns at the same time as planning a new one. Yeah, I come across this very regularly with students and apprentices that I work in. Professional services firms can be very diffuse. They work in lots of different markets, offer lots of different services. It might sometimes feel quite overwhelming in terms of how to put together a plan that encompasses everything. And I would say, try and distill it down. Think about that piece about segment, target, position. If actually, you haven't got a grand strategy, if you're actually putting together a small plan that particularly speaks to a segment, and if it's focused on that segment, if you're thinking about targets and you're thinking about your positioning in with those targets, so that would feature in terms of your campaigns. So that is something that I would encourage you to do. I appreciate that something, there seems to be so much going on, but the risk is that if you're running a whole load of campaigns and thinking about new ones, and that is quite disjointed and they're not connected up, then you might actually be creating more work for yourself than is really sensible, because you might be firing in a number of different directions and those bullets might sort of not all be firing at the same target. So yes, it can feel overwhelming, but I would really sort of, take a breath, take a step back. If it's just finance and regulation, then that's fine. What's your segment within finance and regulation? Who are the targets you're really thinking about? How do you position yourself better with those targets? Distill it down to that level. Don't worry too much about the grand strategy, the grand plan, if that all feels a little bit too much as a first step. And good to see that somebody's actually done already what I thought you could do. We've done exactly that in the last year, just to get the bigger plan communicated at management and all staff levels so that everyone understands what the plan is. It's only a few pages long, but clarifies mission, values, and goals. Well done. Congratulations. I've seen some great plan. People talk about, there's a slight obsession with plan on a page, which sometimes translates into how small can the font go. So don't worry about falling over onto 2 pages or 3 pages or 4 pages or whatever. There is a bit of an obsession with it's got to be on a page. It doesn't have to just be on a page, but at the same time, don't feel that if something isn't 50 or 60 pages with every level of external, internal environment detail laid out, that it's not valid, it's not rigorous. So distill something down, help speak to your managers. And I think MBD professionals have a big role here to play in corporate planning. I think I've seen some great plans which really speak to people because MBD professionals have been involved in translating that, challenging it, asking about that kind of so what piece and getting rid of all that quite interesting stuff and sticking that in an appendix, on the back, on the bottom corner of the intranet. So really focusing on this. So if I've given people a sense of you've got to start at that top level, and without that top level stuff in place, you can't get to an MBD action plan. I've slightly misled you. You can start at the bottom and work up, but you've always got to try and think up and down alignment. And if out of this all that you come out with is a short plan that just targets a particular segment that you work in, is clear on your differentiators, is clear on your targets, is clear about how you're going to position yourself in that marketing place, helps you think about a number of campaigns that you can be running at the same time, then I would say that's a big success. And I think probably on that note, if that's all the questions that have come through, I'll hand back to you, Gail.
Lovely. Thank you, Nigel. Thank you so much for yet another really insightful and very clear and concise run through this particular topic. We could be here all day, but you always deliver for us in such a clear way, and it's hugely helpful for us all to think about things, take the time, think it through so that we can help our firms going forward. So really looking forward to the next one on the 21st of October. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So what we'll do with today's session, I will give everybody, Nigel, your email address, contact details, because I'm sure there'll be more questions coming through. And I'm really delighted with the level of questions that we've had this morning. And it's been really helpful to share that with everybody.
Some really, really great questions. So thank you very much, everybody. And as Gail said, if you want to get in contact and ask more stuff, then I'm very happy to have a chat or have a conversation with people.
Excellent. And what I'll do as well with everybody, I will send out give me sort of a few hours, but I will send out a copy of the slides that we've used this morning. There will also be a copy of the recording, which will be available. So that's why give me a little time. And also I will give you the details of the fabulous apprenticeship scheme that we run with Nigel as the chief tutor. To me, it's a no-brainer. It's free education for us. You don't have to take an apprentice. You don't have to be an apprentice. You can be any age that you like within your firm, but we've got different courses, qualifications that are ideal for most levels. And it doesn't mean you have to come out of the office or go to night school or do anything. It's all to do with your timing and your calendars, so we can easily work around all that for you. So what I'll do, I'll get all that out for you today. Bookings are open for the 21st of October, so get in touch with me, please. We'd love to see you again, and let's just keep the education going and sharing our knowledge amongst everybody. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Lauren, for helping this. We will sort out the glitches that we've had this morning, so please don't worry about that. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you all again on the 21st of October. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail.